Kansas town.
This was probably the most advanced level of decomposition of a body that I had dealt with.
Immediately, the rumors are flying.
They were pointing fingers towards the possible suspect right away. She said, those are the people you need to be looking at, not me.
Soon, new suspects surface, throwing the investigation into turmoil.
Wouldn't be anything to really set this guy off if you knew which button to push.
She'd done this for so many years and got away with it.
And uncovered audio tapes shed light on a complicated relationship coming apart at the seams.
You're very dangerous.
I stick a dynamite with the fuse lit. Don't you ever hang up my again. Fuse lines are the only thing you can ever do this with.
March 24th, 2000, Atchison, Kansas. Just after 10 a.m., local resident Sophia Boldridge calls the Atchison County Sheriff's Department to report that she's worried about her son, 38-year-old Kurt Boldridge.
He had had a fishing trip scheduled on Sunday. Grandma had said, okay, you know, nobody's heard from him. We can't figure out if he is fishing, who he's fishing with. And so my grandmother called and asked for them to do a welfare check.
She explained that it had been close to a week since she had heard from Kurt.
At 10:47 a.m., Atchison County deputies arrive at Kurt's residence. Sophia meets them there.
The house appeared to be locked. Couldn't get access or anything to it. We knocked, called out his name. Family members wanted us to go ahead and try to gain entrance.
With the doors all locked, a deputy makes use of a broken window.
I got to be the one to remove that piece of glass and crawl in through that part of the window. I remember pointing out abnormal, large amount of flies on the window seals and in the windows.
Once Deputy Wogmuth opened the front door, the smell was stronger down this little hallway where Kurt's bedroom is. And I just pointed to Deputy Wogmuth, we need to go this way.
We entered the bedroom. There's a relative large bed and a big fluffy comforter that's kind of pulled up over the bed. We could see the shape of a person underneath.
Once Deputy Wogmuth pulled the comforter back enough, I could see the partial head and arm of a body.
It seemed consistent with a body that had been in that location for anywhere between a week and 10 days. They found blood splatter on the headboard of the bed where the body was located.
I told Jason to stop. We've done the welfare check and we found out that there is someone here. We've got a body, but we don't know, what has happened with the body. We needed to secure the area and get other people down there.
It's not long before the Kansas Bureau of Investigation arrives, including Detective Larry Meyer.
At that time, I'd known Kurt for many years, and I was very familiar with him, and I could recognize his face.
Authorities notify Kurt's mother of his death.
Ms. Boldridge was, of course, upset. She was helpful to law enforcement, answering all the questions that law enforcement had of her.
It had to have been a work day. I just remember I was outside on my 1:30 break and I saw my aunt and my cousin pull up. So I walked over to the car and my aunt said, I just don't know how to tell you this, but they found your dad. And that's all she had to say. And I passed out. It was devastating, to say the least.
Born on October 3rd, 1961, Kurt Boldridge Boldridge grew up in Atchison County, part of a large, close-knit farming family.
There's 8 boys, 3 girls. We lived on a farm in Effingham, went to school, done what farm kids done. Kirk's main responsibility was taking care of the cattle. Farm works hard. Everybody had their job, basically their own specific chores they do. You got to get the job done, and there's no time for no BS. My brother was probably the smartest man I've ever known. He graduated from school early.
After high school, Kurt married. The relationship didn't last, but it did make Kurt a father.
When Brandy was born, it was like you could see the change in him. I've got to start making sure that things are right for her.
My mom and dad got divorced when I was like 2, so they separated when I was pretty young. But as far as with me, my mom and dad always had a good relationship. He loved to dance, he loved to sing, he liked to be the life of the party. We would go fishing. Fishing was usually 90% of what we did.
When it came to work, Kurt didn't shy away from physical labor. He took a job at Atchison Foundry.
It's a steel foundry. It's dirty, hot work. It's one of those places where if you're wanting to make some money in the town, you're going to work there.
In his early 20s, Kurt found love again when he met Lisa Turpin.
She was from a big little town called Winthrop, and it's right on the Missouri River.
Lisa's father was a farmer. Lisa did truly grow up on a farm all of her childhood life.
Lisa, one of 4 children, she was the outlier. She was the one who always kept things interesting with her rebellious streak.
She had some odds and end jobs. She worked at a couple restaurants, as a waitress.
The couple times I met her, she was a little bit of a wild type person. Pretty rambunctious too, outgoing or had a lot of energy.
Kurt Boldridge is that really dependable, staid, predictable, nice guy. Lisa, of course, is fiery, unpredictable. And it's like a moth to the flame. It gives excitement to his life.
In light of his first marriage ending in divorce, Kurt preferred to keep this relationship private.
He kept her kind of secret from us. If he was with her, he wouldn't tell us he was with her.
However, Kurt wasn't shy about sharing the next big development in his life. In 1985, Lisa gave birth to a son.
It was exciting for him, and he couldn't wait to teach him how to fish and how to hunt and stuff like that.
4 months later, Kurt and Lisa married.
I never heard any announcement. I never heard Kurt was getting married to Lisa. It was just, hey, Kurt got married.
But he soon discovered that their passionate courtship made for a troubled marriage.
I don't know why they separated, but I know that she could be nice when she wanted to be and not nice when she wanted to be.
They had an off and on relationship for years. I think it just got to a point where he was done. He was done fighting the battle. They actually got divorced in 1991.
The divorce did little to keep Kurt and Lisa apart.
Even though they were divorced, she was always making sure that he stayed in her life. I guess everybody's got that one person that you just can't shake, and I believe that was his.
Years later, in the late 90s, Kurt and Lisa's on-again, off-again relationship seemed to have truly ended when Kurt began dating a new woman, Sandy Wilson.
Seemed like, they loved each other. They were happy. Dad was moving on.
Kurt and Sandy married in October 1998, but the union lasted barely a year.
Sandy was always nice. It seemed like, they loved each other. I didn't really know her, but I never had any issues with Sandy whatsoever.
Following his third divorce, Kurt settled in a modest home that he built himself.
He built his home, he made his own, he drew up his own blueprints, he did all of that stuff.
It wasn't too long before a familiar face started coming back around.
Like so many ex-spouses, Kurt and Lisa, after the divorce, had never really split up entirely.
It just started right back up, like it had never stopped. He would always go back to try, to get back together, so that they would be together. As I said, she had some kind of, whatever it is, the thing that he just could not leave.
But on March 24th, 2000, Atchison County deputies find 38-year-old Kurt dead inside his country home.
I had a high-intensity light and did a close inspection of the body, and very quickly found what I determined was a near-contact shotgun wound to the side of the body's head. And that's when I went out and told another KBI agent and the sheriff that this matter was indeed a homicide.
Coming up, investigators learn of a lover with a thirst for vengeance.
Claws came out, the horns came out. You wouldn't think that it was the same person.
And an unexpected phone call heats up the investigation.
The lady thought she had some information that we probably ought to know about. She was making comments on what happened and where he was shot before we even knew.
Investigators in Atchison, Kansas have just used a high-intensity light to determine that 38-year-old Kurt Boldridge died from a gunshot wound to the head in his own bed.
That flipped a switch, to okay, this isn't just an unattended death, and this was declared a homicide. We got some work to do here.
The level of decomposition seemed consistent with a body that had been in that location for anywhere between a week and 10 days.
He had a shotgun wound to the head. It was on the left side of his face. And there was blood splatter on the walls and on the bedspread.
As I pulled the sheet back, I found a wadding from what I believe to be a 20-gauge shotgun shell.
There was some tapes that Kirk had that was found during this search. As part of the evidence collection, we sent it to KBI lab to have fingerprints analysis done.
Investigators continue to search the rest of the home.
The house was not in what you would consider a pristine condition, but there was no sign of a struggle. The house was secure.
There was no signs of forced entry at all. We thought someone had a key to the home.
With the hope of finding out who, investigators reach out to the rest of Kurt's family. And they don't hold back when asked who they believe is responsible.
I said the bitch killed him, is what I said. That was the first thing out of my mouth.
When he came out dead, they said that he was murdered. That was only one person to think about.
The Boldridges pointed towards Lisa as being a possible suspect right away.
Kurt's relatives are eager to share stories about Kurt's ex-wife and on-again, off-again lover.
They seemed happy, but as soon as they would split, the claws came out, the horns came out, and she was completely... You wouldn't think that it was the same person that you'd seen before.
Kurt's brother Jeff tells investigators about one of the first disturbing incidents with Lisa that took place in 1992, 8 years ago.
I'd come back to town for a weekend. He was going to come out, we were going to play cards. I noticed that he kept looking out the window. Pretty soon he gets up and he looks out the window and he goes, "I'll be damned." He said, "She's breaking my windows out of my truck." And I go over and look out the window and you just see the glass just shattering in his pickup truck. And it was her. I seen her, she got out of the truck and she had a hammer
Kurt and Jeff called the police to report the incident.
She was arrested for those crimes, and she was convicted.
In spite of her arrest record, Lisa continued to up her game from smashing out car windows to arson.
She set 2 fires to his house. I believe that was August 7th of 1995 is when she set the first one. She just put newspapers in the middle of the house and set them on fire, and somebody, either dad showed up or I don't know the exact details, that it didn't do as much damage the first time. And it was September of 95 when she set the second one. But the second time it almost burnt the house down completely.
Lisa was convicted of 2 counts of arson, and a judge sentenced her to 46 months behind bars. She was released from prison in April 1999. To the disbelief of his family, Kurt and Lisa continued to see each other.
I spoke to him several times and asked him, what the hell's wrong with you? And it was just like, man, it just is what it is.
Talking to Lisa Boldridge quickly becomes investigators' top priority.
A detective from the Atchison Police Department who knew where her parents lived suggested we try there, and so we found her at her parents' house.
They line up an interview for the following morning. But as news of Kurt's death spreads quickly through the small town, another tip comes in.
The lady at the hospital made a phone call to the sheriff's office saying that she thought she had some information that we probably ought to know about.
She says that on Friday, March 24th, while on duty, she answered a call at Atchison Hospital from Lisa.
Lisa made that phone call to the hospital because her sister worked there, and she was asking to talk to her, but her sister couldn't take a phone call, and she said, "Can I help you?" Lisa said, "Well, they just found my ex-husband in bed laying in a pool of blood."
For investigators, the timing of the phone call is a big red flag.
She was making comments of what happened and where he was shot, where he was located in the home before we even knew. It became very aware to us that Lisa Boldridge knew something about this homicide.
On March 27th, 2000, Lisa shows up at the station for her scheduled interview.
It obviously makes it harder when you're dealing with an open-ended timeline. She gave me a answer to where she was and who she was with for the previous 7 to 10 days.
When confronted about her phone call to the hospital, Lisa claims the conversation was only based on a rumor.
She denied any involvement, or said basically she had been told by someone that he was deceased, and they thought that it was possibly a gunshot wound.
Investigators press for more information, and Lisa eventually reveals the name of her source.
She had mentioned an individual by the name of Kirk Wilson.
Kirk was a city employee of the city of Atchison. His title was city superintendent. He was over the public works department, I believe, until he became involved in drugs and his life just went downhill.
Kirk Wilson had been arrested more than once. The sheriff's office has plenty of contact with him.
Detectives ask Lisa for more details about her conversation with Kirk.
She said she got a call from her friend, Kirk Wilson, that morning and asked for her go with him to dispose of the shotgun that was used in the shooting. Lisa said that they disposed of the shotgun in the Missouri River.
Lisa says she knows nothing more about the actual murder, although she does offer up 2 more names.
She brought up Gary Skeen, Johnny Goodpasture, and Kirk Wilson.
Goodpasture and Skeen, I knew their names, their last names, from dealings at the sheriff's office already. Those are some frequent flyers that we have.
She said those are the people you need to be looking at, not me. And it was unusual that she would bring that up with her claiming that she knew nothing about the homicide.
Coming up, a dangerous suspect comes into focus.
It wouldn't be anything to really set this guy off if you knew which button to push.
And a threat caught on tape shapes a motive.
You think I'm playing this time? I'm not.
Authorities in Atchison, Kansas are in the first 72 hours of investigating the murder of Kurt Boldridge. When police question Kurt's ex-wife, Lisa, she insists she's innocent, but offers up 3 potential suspects: Kirk Wilson, John Goodpasture, and Gary Skeen.
We asked Lisa all kinds of questions, any contact whatsoever she had with Kurt Boldridge. She said that they had been going out on some small dates here and there before this occurred.
When the interview is over, Lisa makes a bizarre comment to investigators.
She turned to me and said, "Oh, by the way, if you find out that I went to the Social Security office to find out what the benefits would be for my son if Kurt died, that was just coincidental." I was shocked, and I thought it was one of the greatest admissions that I had ever heard. Quite frankly, I don't know if that lead would have ever come up without her opening the door and saying that she had spoken to the Social Security office.
The investigators keep Lisa's shocking comment in their back pocket for now, and turn their focus to the first name she gave them, Kirk Wilson.
Kirk had a prior for being involved in an incident with his father where he may have physically took him to the bank and demanded he draw money out of the bank. Kirk went to prison on those charges. He was in a prison then.
Wouldn't be anything to really set this guy off if you knew which button to push.
But it's not just Kirk's record that leads investigators to believe he might be involved in Kurt's death. There is another potentially explosive connection between Kurt and Kirk.
When Kirk went to prison, Kurt Boldridge hooked up with Sandy White, Kirk Wilson's ex-wife. Sandy White and Kurt Boldridge got married.
It's very likely that it made him completely crazy to know that she was dating another man while he was behind bars.
Kirk's stature also fits the investigators' theory.
My opinion was it would take a taller person to actually be the shooter. Lisa was not that tall. Kirk Wilson, he is a taller guy. He'd be able to pull the shotgun up higher like that. I don't think Lisa was capable of doing that.
On March 28th, deputies locate 44-year-old Kirk Wilson and bring him in for an interview.
When we went to talk to Kirk Wilson, he lawyered up on us before we could ever get to even speak to him.
Investigators switch gears and take another look at Lisa.
They found the clerk at the Social Security office in St. Joseph, Missouri, that she had spoken to, had her notes from their conversation, and what Lisa was interested in, what benefits or what increase in benefits would be available to their son because of his father's death. And that this conversation occurred approximately a week before Kurt's body was found.
She wanted to find the death benefits for her son, knowing that Lisa would actually physically get that money as the custodial parent until he was 18 years old.
Although their suspicions are growing by the day, investigators don't have enough for an arrest.
We wanted to get other evidence and do follow-up interviews. We wanted to definitely build a good case.
investigators need to determine if a connection lies between Lisa, Kirk Wilson, and the other two names Lisa gave in her interview, John Goodpasture and Gary Skeen.
Kirk Wilson, Johnny Goodpasture, and Gary Skeen were all good friends. All of them had prior criminal history, so they could have been involved. When we talked to Johnny Goodpasture, he told us off-the-wall stories at first. Gary Skeen, he wouldn't tell us anything.
After diving further into the two friends' criminal history, investigators believe it's possible they could have acted alongside Kirk.
Gary Skeen, one of the suspects, he had served some time in jail and I think prison for prior burglaries and things like that. Johnny Goodpasture, he had served time in prison.
Skeen was a fighter. He didn't mind throwing punches at bars and had to watch yourself around him. And Goodpasture, he was more into the drugs.
The investigation continues, and Lisa goes about her business, raising eyebrows around town, especially with the Boldridge family.
I'd actually called the sheriff because she drove by my house plenty of times and honked her horn and flipped me the bird. She was going around town bragging that, she wasn't going to jail. She was still walking around and not arrested. I was kind of thinking, man, she's probably going to get away with it.
Initial forensic results come back from the crime scene, but there's not much to go on.
The shotgun shell, I do not recall any fingerprints being on it or any other item that was collected.
So investigators turn to several tape recordings found earlier at the scene, and they are shocked by what they hear.
Kirk had recorded conversations with Lisa Boldridge, accusing each other, cutting tires, accusing each other, domestics, things like that.
I hope you and your little bitch had time to get things worked out tonight, because you've got to answer me this time.
What are you talking about?
Don't even play stupid, okay? I got two eyes and I got two ears. And I'm so sorry for your motherfucking ass, brother. You think I'm playing this time. I'm not stupid, Kurt.
Now what are you talking about?
Don't even play stupid with me, okay? You got time in the world for everybody but me, but I'm gonna start making time for me and whoever the I want.
Okay, bye. Hello?
Don't you ever hang up my fucking ear.
Material things mean nothing to me at this point in time. All replaceable. Human lives are only things that cannot be replaced. That's the only thing at this point in time I can put a value on. Human life. Whatever.
You don't even know what happened.
It's clear that Lisa isn't just jealous and possessive. She's increasingly controlling to the point of being unstable. And for Kurt, he's increasingly afraid of her.
You're very dangerous.
Like a stick of dynamite with a fuse lit.
That's right.
Investigators discover that Kurt even confronted Lisa about the harassment he endured from her over the years.
You broke into my house and stepped that fucking little bucket out there, went through the window and got all my clothes out here. Yeah, but you went in there with a stack of newspapers and tried to burn the damn house down.
I didn't do that. What else did that? Why would you come see? That's what you want.
They came in with you.
Oh, yeah.
And then you went in there and spray painted the bathroom wall.
No, I didn't do that.
And you busted up the toilet.
That I didn't.
Yeah.
That I didn't. I did take your clothes.
Hoping to eventually break her down, over the next 3 months, investigators continue to bring Lisa in for multiple interviews. They press her on the one admission she did make, that she helped Kirk dispose of the murder weapon.
She had said it had been thrown in like 3 or 4 different spots. So we were never sure if she was telling the truth or not. And a dive team from St. Joseph's came down and searched the river and never found it.
4 months after Kurt was found dead, they bring Lisa in for another interview. This time, Lisa consents to a polygraph.
Do you know who was involved? Do you know what happened? Do you know who shot him? Shot Kurt?
Lisa was being so arrogant with the polygraph man for KBI that she could just talk her way out of anything.
But the facade soon falters.
Just pretty much everything we asked her, she failed.
Considering Lisa's history of violence, threats against Kurt, and her interest in his finances, the failed polygraph tips the scales.
That's when we presented her the warrant for first-degree murder in an amount of a bond of $1 million. And she just pretty much fell to the floor. She could not believe we had a warrant for her arrest.
When she was arrested, it was a huge relief. I felt like I could sleep and I could breathe again.
That had to give all the family a lot of relief. But they knew that it wasn't done yet until everything went through court.
Coming up, two likely accomplices turn on each other.
Kurt threatened John Goodpasture that he would kill him just like he did Kurt.
Will it finally lead to the truth?
With Lisa's direction, they hatched a plan.
After 4 months, authorities in Kansas have arrested Lisa Boldridge for the murder of her ex-husband, Kurt Boldridge. While they work to keep her behind bars, investigators get a disturbing phone call from Kim Wilson, Kirk Wilson's second wife.
There was a domestic disturbance between Mr. Wilson, his wife, and Mr. Goodpasture. She made a phone call and told the Atchison County Sheriff's Office that Mr. Wilson had made an admission to her about being involved in the murder of Kurt Boldridge.
Kirk Wilson accused John Goodpasture for having a sexual romantic relationship with his wife, Kim Wilson. Kirk threatened John Goodpasture that he would kill him just like he did Kurt Boldridge, that he was a dead man. Kim was interviewed in regards to this information. She confirmed the information.
In fact, Kim reports that Kirk had made the same threat to her.
Kirk made a statement to her that he had killed Kurt Boldridge and he'd go to jail for killing her too.
Then, on September 19th, 2000, John Goodpasture has another run-in with the law and suddenly has a change of heart.
Another big turning point in the case was when Goodpasture got arrested for drugs. He wanted to talk to Investigator Meyer about the case.
His explanation was that the 4 individuals, Lisa Boldridge, Kirk Wilson, Goodpasture, and Gary Skeen, were together one night and were discussing their various dislikes of Kurt Boldridge.
John says that around 1 a.m. on March 18th, Kirk Wilson started retelling a shocking story that Lisa had shared with him.
Because Kurt Boldridge was married to Kirk Wilson's ex-wife at one point, there were times when the Wilson son was in the same home with Kurt Boldridge. Lisa told Kirk that her ex-husband Kurt had sexually abused his son. She would make up a lie to get anything she wanted.
John reports that even with zero proof, the 3 men were infuriated by Lisa's outrageous allegations, especially Kirk.
Kirk was wound up, and his anger was contagious. These emotions begin to feed each other, and exponentially rise and escalate until people aren't just angry, they're ready to take action. Almost like mob mentality.
That night, with Lisa's direction, they hatched a plan to kill him.
Lisa promised the men that their good deed would be rewarded.
Lisa informed them that there was drugs in the house, and that Gary Skeen and John Goodpasture, they were going down there for the drugs.
John Goodpasture confesses to police that Lisa drove ahead to Kurt's house and the other three followed.
She still had a key to the home, and that's the way the suspects was let in.
Evidently, from past dealings, Lisa may have known where Kurt kept his shotguns.
They got to the bedroom. Lisa grabbed a shotgun and was leaning against the wall, threw it to Kirk Wilson. Said just shoot him in the head.
Still enraged by the story Lisa told him, Kirk did just that.
Kurt Wilson actually shot Kurt Boldridge while he was sleeping.
John Goodpasture tells investigators that they spent a few minutes searching for the promised drugs.
I don't believe there was ever any drugs found in the house.
Kirk and Lisa headed off in a separate car to dump the shotgun in the Missouri River.
John Goodpasture then took a polygraph, passed the polygraph, and became a state witness.
John is placed under arrest and charged with aggravated burglary. Investigators don't have to hunt for Kirk and Gary.
Kirk Wilson was in jail, and we physically just approached him and gave him an arrest warrant. He was under his lawyer's advice not to speak. Gary was being held on a probation violation. We presented him the warrant while he was in jail also.
Closing the final loop, investigators find no evidence that Kurt Boldridge assaulted Kirk Wilson's son.
Sandy White was interviewed by officers about the allegations made by Lisa Boldridge against Kurt Boldridge. It was found to be unfounded. Sandy denied that anything like that ever happened.
In the end, it was confirmed that Kurt Boldridge never abused that child. Lisa fabricated this story, knowing what it would do to Kurt Wilson.
The plan was to piss Kurt Wilson off so bad that he would kill him, and she was going to sail away scot-free.
Lisa just wanted Kurt Boldridge dead, and she did everything in her power to get him killed, and she succeeded. Lisa was just evil.
Coming up, Lisa's arrogance is on display.
She would sit and mock the family members sitting in the courtroom. She'd done this for so many years and got away with it.
And her defense centers on a critical detail.
She only played a minor role. She didn't fire the fatal shot.
Kirk Wilson, Gary Skeen, and John Goodpasture have joined Lisa Boldridge in being charged with the shooting death of Kurt Boldridge. Prosecutors are determined to prove that Lisa was the mastermind behind the deadly plan.
Lisa had a financial motive. She thought, in some manner, Kurt's death would place her in a better financial position with benefits coming to their son.
But many in Atchison, including the Boldridge family, believe Lisa's motive was twofold.
If her and my dad were not going to be together, nobody was going to be with him.
Lisa's trial begins on January 8th, 2001. Lisa's behavior in the courtroom reflects the same confidence she showed throughout the investigation.
She would sit and mock the family members sitting in the courtroom. Little stupid smirk smiles and like hee and little grinning gestures and stuff like that when she thought she was winning. I think because mainly she'd done this for so many years and got away with it.
Prosecutors allege that for a while, Lisa was happy simply irritating Kurt.
Dad suffered threats, the phone calls all night long, the constant harassment.
But the harassment wasn't enough.
John Goodpasture takes the stand, and he affirms that the entire idea was Lisa Boldridge's. In fact, it was Lisa who put the idea for killing Kurt into Kirk Wilson's head.
I definitely 100% believe it wouldn't have happened if it wouldn't have been for her.
Lisa's defense hinges on one detail.
She made the argument that she only played a minor role, going into the house to allow the other 3 individuals to go in. She didn't fire the fatal shot.
Following a 3-day trial, Lisa is found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge shows little leniency at her sentencing.
The judge imposed what Kansas refers to as the hard 50 sentence, which means she has to serve 50 years in custody before she becomes eligible for parole.
Kirk Wilson goes to trial in June 2001. The jury finds him guilty of first-degree murder. Rather than risk trial, Gary Skeen and John Goodpasture take plea deals.
Mr. Goodpasture was allowed to plead to a charge of aggravated burglary in exchange for his testimony.
Kirk got 25 years for shooting him. And Kirk, he just couldn't believe that. She got more time than he did because she orchestrated it.
Gary Skeen receives a 14-year sentence for conspiracy to commit murder, and John Goodpasture is granted 24 months of probation. While the Boldridge family still struggles with the loss, they keep Kurt's memory alive.
You can strip everything away from him, but you know what? We're still family. He's still my brother. He's still family. He went nowhere. At the end of the day, that's all we got left.
So it was devastating, to say the least. I miss him every day. Even 22 years later, some days it seems like it was yesterday, and sometimes it seems like it was 100 years ago. But I don't miss him any less